So today is December 29th, 2019. That is more than a year after November 15th, after the event on November 15th of 2018. Now, what happened on November 15th, I will tell three stories. Something that happened November 15th, something that happened in May 10th of 2019, and a little bit on June. Now, the reason why these events are important is because they are the first evidence, they are the first proof that what I was working on was actually real. Before this event, before this experience that I had in November 15th, I had no idea if what I was looking for was actually real or not. But when this happened, when this event happened November 15th, I got my first inkling, my first evidence, my first experience in knowing that what I was working towards was actually something that could be obtained. So I will tell you three stories. The first will be in November 15th. Now, the first event happened in November 15th, 2018. And in this day, it was my fourth day of fasting. It was my fourth day of fasting, and my niece was sitting on my bed because she was always following me around. But it was my fourth day of fasting, and I was like wrestling with all this frustration, all this craving. And remember, the fourth day of fasting, there's something relevant about that because it was 4 out of 3 days. But I'll explain that later. I'll explain the relevance of that later. But I was fighting with these feelings of frustration and, you know, like the cravings and the temptation that were going on inside me. At the same time, I was looking at my notes. And the notes that I was looking at, because of what happened here, I ended up extracting them and giving it its own file. It's called a volition list. So we can probably go through that another time. But as I was looking through my notes and I'm wrestling with this frustration, something happened. Something kind of clicked, but it didn't feel like a click. It felt like a circle, like a logical circle, right? Like A implies B and B implies A. And it felt something like I know this is true because I believe it, and I believe it because it becomes true. So it was a kind of like a weird logical circle, and these notes kind of induced that. And this logical circle felt so strong that in my mind, I felt a wave, kind of like going back and forth in this logic. And as this logic, as this wave kind of like dissipated, my mind became more and more clear. So the wave, the feeling of the wave was dissipating, and my mind became more and more clear. And I got up and I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. And my niece was there, and she saw when it happened. She saw when it happened, and you know, again, trying to explain the logical circle, it was kind of like, I'm done because I believe I'm done, and I believe I'm done because I see it, or something like that. But yeah, I was done, and in that moment, like, my mind was super clear, completely clear. The feelings of frustration now felt like I was flying inside. It felt like energy, like I had that much energy. So instead of frustration, it was energy. My mind was completely clear, like I could hear everything. Super sharp minds. Like I could notice so many things around me, like all the colors. And when I stood up, I was like, okay, I'm done. And I wanted to explore the world. I wanted to explore the world. How did it look from their perspective? So I stood up, and I was standing up completely straight, but just naturally. Like I wasn't even trying to stand up straight. But I just noticed. I mean, because like everybody slouches. Like right now, you could probably notice that you're slouching a bit. But I would notice that I was standing up completely straight, and I felt myself, and I was like, wow. This feels nice, right? So my mind is completely sharp, standing up straight, and I feel like I have a lot of energy inside me, like I'm flying. Not energy like jittery, but like peaceful, like power, you know? So I decided to go outside of my room and, you know, just to see the world, what it looked like from that perspective. I went into the kitchen, right? And there's my 2 other nieces there. and they're making quesadillas, right? And usually, you know, most people can relate to this. Most people that I talk to, there's some people that I can't. But usually when I smell food, whether I'm hungry or not, or even if I'm full, when I smell food, I get a craving. Like I still want to eat, right? Unless I'm like super full. But most of the times I still want to eat when I smell food. And that's common for me. But this time when I walked into the kitchen, I saw and I smelled the quesadillas, and I smelled them and I'm like, wow, I feel nothing. I feel nothing. And my niece was like, what do you mean? It's like, I have no temptation. And she was like, yes, you do. And she put the quesadilla in my face and was like, yes, you do. And I smelled it. It's like, I don't. And she said, you're lying. And I told her, no, here, I'll show you. So I sat her down on the chair. And first, oh, right. Then I remembered, hey, I got to go get my notes. So I brought I brought my notes with me. And I told her, okay, let's do this. Put the quesadillas away. Then I thought about it again and was like, no. Start eating the quesadillas. And she took one bite. She took 2 bites. And on the 3rd bite, I said, okay, stop. In the middle of the bite, mid-bite, because that's, in the middle of a bite, that's when it's hardest to resist, because you're in the middle of it. You already assume that you're going to go through with the action. So that's when it's hardest to resist. And I told her to open her mouth and put it down, right? So she put it down. And she, of course, because it's hardest to resist, she was getting that feeling of frustration inside her. And so I told her, okay, you feel that frustration? And she said, yes, I feel the frustration. All right, that's good, because that's what I'm working with. So I told her how to focus, how to shift her mind, how to what aspects of the sensations to pay attention to, and how to reinterpret the sensations and everything. I went through the notes with her. And by the end of it, I was like, okay, so now do you want the quesadillas? And she was like, I don't. And of course, I'm skeptical. Just to make sure that she wasn't humoring me. Not that my niece is somebody that would humor me anyway, but just to make sure, because I'm skeptical, I told her, okay, so can I throw them away? And I put them over the trash can. And she's like, yeah, throw them away. I don't want them anymore. And well, you know, I felt bad for throwing away food, so I was like, okay, never mind. And then I kind of debriefed her. I said, well, this feeling might go away in a few minutes, so you know, whatever. But she still had that. And she told her sister. She said, hey, do you want my quesadillas? I really don't want them anymore. And her sister said, oh well, I'm already making my own. Yeah. So that's what happened on November 15th. After that, I was like, okay, well, now that I'm done, now that I'm in this state, like, this is perfect. I'll take notes on this. And, you know, to kind of finish it off. So I went back into my room and I kind of thought to myself, I wonder how long this is going to last. And again, it made that logical circle again. I wonder how long this is going to last. And there was another statement that said, because you're thinking it, that's how you know that it's over. Because you're having doubts, that's how you know that it's over. So the thought came in through a logical circle, and it left through a logical circle. That experience of being in that clarity, only lasted like 5 minutes. And that's when I noticed that it was done, that I didn't have it anymore. So I took notes on my experience. That's the best that I could do. But that experience only lasted like 5 minutes. But I mean, as far as Practicality project, right? Imagine you having a completely clear mind so that nothing distracts you. Complete self-control so that you're completely disciplined. You feel a lot of energy. You feel like you're flying and you're standing up straight. So if you had all of these all the time, how much more practical would you be? Right? And ever since that experience, I've been working on developing a formula to be able to achieve this, to be able to induce this state of mind. And I've been working on being able to hone it. So after I had that experience on November 15th, like a week later, I managed to get it up to 20%. It went up to 20% for like 10 seconds. Then a week after that, it went up to 10%. And lately, like after that, I've just been getting glimpses of that state of mind, just like up and down. But whenever it happens, it only goes up like a little bit, like 2%. So it's nothing great. But as far as the fasting, now, I mentioned that it was the 4th day of fasting, right? And that's 4 out of 3 days, because I usually fast for 3 days, and this was my 4th day. And what happens on the 4th day, why the 4th day is relevant, is because it's an extra day. And if it's an extra day, basically, the first 3 days are easy because your mind already made, for me, the first 3 days are easy because my mind already made a decision to fast for those 3 days. When that decision is over, that's when all the temptation starts coming in on the 4th day. So after those 3 days, it's kind of like, because I decided that I was done, I no longer had the decision to fast, but I was still struggling, right? And kind of my mind was kind of like wondering, like, okay, we're done. Why is this still going on? Why are you still fasting? Why are you still struggling, right? Why are you still fighting? Why are you still wrestling with this? And because of that, your mind just starts going crazy. Like, why is this happening? Like, are you going to do this forever? Like, and so because of that, that extra day of fasting, that's what makes it a lot harder than the first 3 days. It's not that it's the 4th day, it's just that it's just an extra day. That being said, the second experience that I had in May 10th, it happened on the 8th out of 7th day of fasting. So I was fasting for a week, but it was not like a complete fast. It was just like a fruit fast, like just raw fruits and vegetables. And on the 8th day, that's when I started having the experience, like, what is going on, like, so I'll get to that. So on May 10th, on the 8th day of fasting, I started, like, again, forcing myself to an extra day of fasting, 8 out of 7. And what happened was that I was flashing in and out of 20%. I call this state of mind eudaimonia. In my system, I call it eudaimonia. And I was flashing in and out of 20% eudaimonia. By the end of it, it kind of settled like in 10%, and it lasted. The amazing thing is that it lasted for like 3 days. It lasted for like 3 days, and even people noticed. Something that I think about is, I think about how it feels like to me in first person, but I don't really think about how other people perceive it. But other people noticed and they commented, yeah, you looked a little bit more lucid today. And then, because I told them about what I was doing and what I was experiencing, and they affirmed, yeah, that's what it was. That's what you look like. Yeah. So that's what happened on May 10th. It lasted for 3 days, which was amazing.
So I decided to get boba instead, boba right there, instead of doing the IHOP thing, just because it's a little less sweeter. Hopefully my bad habits won't sneak up on me, like, gradually. But it feels like I've reached a tipping point, or past the tipping point, where now the craving is not really begging to be satisfied, but it's kind of like also pushing against it. So that's a good thing. It's kind of like an anti-craving instead, so it's kind of like an energy that just wants to linger there and get stronger even. So hopefully I can last. Hopefully I can make that last. But also I'm hoping that I can maybe go push the tipping point even more over, so that I can increase the energy. I've been operating at about, it kind of stabilized like at about a 10% eudaimonia clarity since yesterday, and I've been operating at that level ever since. So, what's funny though, it's that I was thinking of reviewing some notes, just going over remodifying the volition list to kind of make it flow easier. And I was just looking for a place to kind of do that, someplace with no music. I'm kind of tired of Starbucks, right? And I had this gift card, right, the IHOP gift card. So I was thinking of going to IHOP and indulging myself in some sweet, indulgent pancakes, but I could still feel some like resistance left over, some like it still kind of feels like an energy, but kind of like a craving. It still feels like a craving, but it's almost like an energy that doesn't need to be satiated. It doesn't need to be appeased or satisfied. So it just feels like that energy. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to see how long it lasts. I'm trying to see if it could linger for a little bit longer, because that energy, when it doesn't need to be appeased, you can actually use it to be productive instead of just trying to drown it out with your regular bad habits. So I'm just gonna see how long it lasts, see if my bad habits make a comeback. Until then, we'll see what happens.
I started developing a formula while I was in Mexico, and during the month of June, maybe July, and this is what I got from when I was developing that formula.
So it seems like I have completed the formula for volition. Now, there are other aspects, other levels to the Practicality project, such as the realm of narratives, which I've yet to complete, which I've yet to seek out, to search out, but we're not going over that. Right now we're going over the volition formula that I've completed. And the signs that I get that I've completed the volition formula is that first I get that burning sensation in my chest and the mental clarity. Now, in November 15th, I achieved that state to 100%, to a way greater level. And I was getting the burning sensation in my chest. I felt like I was flying inside. And I was getting the mental clarity. I was standing up straight, just naturally. And I also had complete self-control. So in May 15th, I managed to do it again, but the power was only like 10%. So there was that. But the thing that tells me that the formula is complete, even though right now I haven't even gotten to 10%, not even 100%, is that now I can induce it at will. I can sit down, look over the steps, focus, and start going in that direction. When before, when I would try to do it, I would sit for long periods of time, trying to figure it out, not knowing what to do, and all of a sudden, spontaneously, it would happen. But I wouldn't know how. That happened in November 15th, that happened in May 15th. Right now, I can sit down, actually follow the steps, and actually start going in that direction, actually directly induce, what's the word? Directly induce at will that burning sensation in my chest and the mental clarity. So that's what tells me that the volition formula is complete. It's not as stabilized. It's also not as stabilized as it was in November 15th or in May 15th. But that just tells me that I need to practice it more. I need to develop the discipline to make that decision. And the last step that was involved in this formula was the last essential step was clarity, which I just discovered like 1 or 2 weeks ago. I was working on it 1 or 2 weeks ago. So that was the last step. So now that the volition formula is complete, I can actually start explaining it instead of just ambiguously mentioning it. I can actually start sharing it and explaining it. So I'm excited for that. And I'm excited to actually use it and actually start developing volition and going towards the eudaimonia. I'm in Mexico, by the way. This is a Mexican hill. I don't know if you noticed the Mexican Cristo. Yes.
So those are the 3 main events that it's this experience keeps coming back, and because of those events, that is the kind of mentality, the kind of state of mind that I'm going towards. I'm developing a formula. Ever since then, what I've been feeling, I've managed to induce it at will, but always to like a low level, kind of like waving up and down, like at 1%, 2%, and below. So it's not that much, but throughout, you know, along my journey, I try to keep refining this formula in order to perfect this procedure to be able to induce that state of mind I will.